Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today, I am joined by a good friend of mine, Mr. Tevis Marcum. How you doing today, brother?
Hey, Ken, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Dude, this is such an honor. We've been trying to hook this up for a little bit. Matt, your agent, was nice enough to hook us up with each other. So
Awesome.
You are an actor and a producer. That is correct, right?
That would be correct. I do, the acting was pretty much my first thing, and I've found myself doing some producing of late.
Right. And for those of you that haven't seen Tevis, which I'd be shocked if you haven't, he's been in such titles as Tale of Tales, Stone, The Shade Shepherd, Division 19, just to name a couple. So, man, what have you been working on here lately? What's been going on in your world right now?
Well, Ken, we just wrapped on Tale of Tales, as you had mentioned earlier, and on Tubi for the last month or so. It's getting ready to hit a bunch of other different platforms as well. We've sold it to Italy, Sky Italia, I believe they call it. France and Russia are interested. So we look like the foreign sales alone are going to really help propel us into what we're really hoping, and that's a second season.
That's awesome, man. I'm very hopeful. For those of you that haven't heard of Tale of Tales, the poster alone is going to get you excited for what the show is. So,
or in trouble.
It's something I can't wait to really dive into. And it's something that, yeah, we do a lot of horror on this channel, but man, a little bit non-spoiler. What can you tell us about Tale of Tales?
Well, Tale of Tales is basically it's a show much along the lines of a Better Call Saul or a Sons of Anarchy. It's got the strip club as a backdrop, and the nuances of the club are all based on true things that I have seen in my stumblings in the industry. I stumbled upon it just going to a bachelor party, started a DJ here and there as a substitute, and picked up just a whole different side of life, really, because I wasn't a strip club guy per se. You know, I was a rock and roller. I played in bands. I wasn't an angel or anything, but just the little nuances, and that's really cool. So you have this little crime story that goes on involving bike gangs and cops and whatnot. The strip club is a backdrop. Nick, the owner, is a kind of guy you love to hate, and you watch to see what kind of trouble he gets himself into trying to maintain this club called Tales. And like I said, the industry itself just provided so much information that you would not believe. I mean, no spoiler here, but if you watch the show and you've seen Pizza Guy, that's based off a true guy, a true character. So it has those little surprises.
See, and that's what I love, when you can take it from your own life and experiences that you've had, and you can put it on the screen. You can tell there's more heart and soul in those projects because it means more to you, because this is more personal to you. So that's something I'm very excited about. And you guys don't have to go searching for this, because I have the links for the Tubi right down here in the description. So all you gotta do is click the links down here in the description, and you can check this out. And I got a confession to make. 35 years old, been with my wife for over half of my life now, high school sweethearts. Never been in the strip club in my entire life. Not knocking it. To anybody that enjoys it, more power to you. It is just not for me. So I can live vicariously through shows like Tale of Tales and not have to go spend all my money. So I'm very excited to sit down and dive deep into this, and then text you and let you know my honest feelings about it, because I think that the industry right now is thriving with the indie movies, the indie TV shows, because when COVID shut everything down, and hopefully we can get this Delta variant under control so we can keep making films. But the hard work that you guys do with your COVID protocols and all the hard work that goes into what you got in indie films, it's not unappreciated, man. We love you. We appreciate you. We're in lockdowns. We're in different quarantines, and you guys are what keeps us sane. You know, we didn't realize how much we took for granted going to the cinema or watching a show on Netflix or Prime or Hulu. You know, we have these avenues now that are able to keep us sane when we're going through these quarantines and going through these lockdowns. And you guys have to go through all these hoops just to get your art out there. So from the bottom of my heart, and I can tell you, every person that's ever followed Sledgehammer Horror or watched any episode, we appreciate all the hard work you guys do. I know sometimes it can feel like a drag, even though you're making your art. It's not unappreciated, man. Thank you for all the hard work and blood, sweat, and tears you put into all this stuff for us.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, definitely something that affected us, because when we started, there was no pandemic. And then as we started filming, all of a sudden, the NBA was canceled. And I'm thinking, what happened that they got all those billionaires to suddenly go, yeah, sure, we'll cancel it. And I thought, wow, something's about to happen. And eventually, they put quotas on how many people you could have. And then it was an all flat out shutdown. Now that affected us like everybody, it shut us down. And then a few months went by. And when they opened it back up with a certain amount of people, it allowed us a certain window where we were able to finish in time along our same basic schedule that we were going to do. Harley Wallen of Painted Creek Productions, our partner, he was the one that had other projects to do that got bumped, because of the pandemic. But it left time for us to just finish all 8 episodes and get them in. But we had to do it this time under certain conditions and protocols. So we experienced both sides of it, the fun side before the pandemic and then after the pandemic. So that was our horror in filming.
Matt, like I said, we appreciate you. I respect all the hard work you guys do. I've been able to be on a couple sets now, and I appreciate and respect so much the hard work and the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into what you guys do. So, Matt, we know what you got going on right now, Tevis, but my friend, I want to go back to the past. I want to talk about why we are here today, the movie that got you into the horror genre. And your first horror movie, my friend, was
The Incredible Shrinking Man, I think it was called. Because first it seemed like it was kind of fun and cool for the cat. And then all of a sudden he kept shrinking, and like the cat was your enemy. Spiders were going to eat you. And it just kind of freaked me out. I don't know why. I was really, really young, but that was the first movie that literally made me have dreams at night and, thought about being an incredible shrinking man. I mean, I was scared of beetles and centipedes. I was like, man, what if I shrunk? And oh yeah, that one affected me big time as a young kid.
Do you remember about how old you were the first time you seen it?
I was probably 4 or 5.
Wow, yeah. And for people that haven't seen The Incredible Shrinking Man, one scene that we're going to talk about, we talk about which scene affected you the most, and something we've talked about with the cat, and we often forget about as a child, watching things as a child with an innocence of 4 and 5 versus watching them as a 35-year-old cynical man are 2 completely different viewings. And you go back and you watch this scene as a 4 or 5-year-old with that cat, almost toying with him, trying to get him in that little house. And that's a terrifying scene for a child to run into. Like, what if that was me? And I got shrunk down and this cat's playing cat and mouse with me. So I can totally understand and respect what you're talking about after going back and rewatching. That's terrifying to think about.
Yeah. I kept thinking, doesn't the cat know it's me? Why would he want to do this to me? We were friends. We were pals.
Right. And this movie, and what a lot of people don't know, that there was also a sequel to this, The Incredible Shrinking Woman. And both these movies are a lot of fun. I sat down and watched them both. But with The Incredible Shrinking Man, it's a movie that is more, I compare it to Ghostbusters and the fact that it's a horror comedy. There's a lot of, comedic elements to this movie. Yeah. But that part with the cat alone, it's almost creature feature like.
Yeah. And remember, he has to use a needle for a weapon.
Yeah.
Or a pin. Yeah. And then it gets too big. So, yeah. Always affected.
It's one of those things where this is a movie that I don't think you could make this movie today, with all this, because obviously this movie was done practically. And with all the CGI that they have today, I think that it would take away from how special The Incredible Shrinking Man was. Oh, how they did that all practically.
Because you know what? When I look back or think about that now, there was nothing fake about it. I imagine this guy suddenly, because you saw certain items in his house that were certain sizes, and as he shrunk, I didn't pay attention to even if it was the same chair, just that it was shrinking and he was shrinking and it was getting bigger and everything around him got bigger. The matchbox that he had to live in or whatever, those little nuances. There was nothing that seemed, oh, gee, I'm not buying this. Not as a young kid anyway. And even years later when I watched repeats of it, when I was a teenager and stuff, I still enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah. Well, see, and I look at this just like I look at like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. You know, like all of that was done practically as well. And you look at like the Wolfman transformation in that, how he just lays there and it does the stop motion almost and it gets bigger. Like I would take that over the CGI any day. I love practical effects. And even back then, the practical effects that they had then were absolutely phenomenal. So it's something that if you guys haven't seen The Incredible Shrinking Man, I would strongly recommend you check that movie out. It's a great movie to watch. What would you say? We talked about the cat, but what would you say your favorite scene from The Incredible Shrinking Man is?
From what I can remember, it was when he was using that needle. I mean, that's what, it just seemed to be like how he used everyday household items that we took for granted that are now suddenly what's keeping him alive. String, that was like rope to him and really strong. And it was just string, and that needle that just seemed like to save his life. That's what really
the ingenuity, because like you said, he can't grab a gun.
No.
He's got to be the MacGyver before there was a MacGyver.
Right. And I remember the sadness. I think there was a scene in there where he was just yelling and he's realizing he's too small to be heard. And that sinking feeling like, wow, you're literally a speck, dude. You were their family, their father, their brother, their husband, and now you're just a speck, man. Even the cat's not with you.
And this is one of those movies that it does have that like I said, it is a comedy more than anything, but there are horror elements to it. And that overwhelming sadness that is coming, like, that eventually you're an atom, a molecule, and what then? So there is this always like feeling of impending doom that you're feeling as you're watching this film.
Right. I kept hoping for his rescue, but he just kept shrinking, where they couldn't even find him anymore. So, yeah.
And it's one of those things that, again, I don't think a movie like this could be made today, but I don't think it should be. I think this is one that I am strongly recommending people watch this, because I think you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of it. But Tevis, we talked about your first horror movie and how special that movie was to you, being The Incredible Shrinking Man. But real quick, I want to change gears on you for a second, and I want to go scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh, well, my favorite one, I mean, I hate to be lame. I mean, I don't know if it counts, but I mean, it literally changed my life and affected a major decision. So I guess that makes it kind of important. And that was Jaws. I was like 13, 14 when that came out, watching that movie. And it was so well done because you didn't always see the shark. I mean, the tension from the music, and it just scared the bejesus out of you. When I finally did go to Florida, I went no more than ankle deep, and I saw a jellyfish, and I was out of there. Now, I'll go charter fishing. I'd love to go deep sea fishing. I'm not afraid of the ocean or the water, but going in it, not a big fan. Not the first thing I need to do. That's their property. And it was pretty lifelike even back then, the shark, even though you can see how mechanical probably now. But I mean, when you don't know any better, it's like people ask you, don't you, would you miss something that you never had? You couldn't have missed cell phones back in the 80s. You never knew about them, or 60s or 70s. You know what I'm saying? So it was that kind of thing as well. I got into it. It just scared sharks. It just became a phenomenon that the media took hold of as well and splashed it all over what a success it was. And then everybody else jumped on it. Then the research went into it. Documentaries went into it. Then there was Shark Week on Discovery. And, it fed into all of that hype. And back then when that came out, I fell into it just like everybody else. And I said, yeah, I can't beat up a shark.
I'm telling you, man, Jaws 100% is a horror film to me. Yes, to me, and I'm with you. Like I oft compare Jaws and Alien, because of the unknown that you have of space and the ocean, and
Alien
the creature
too, yeah.
feature and the absolute gut wrenching fear that comes along with Alien and Jaws. And I'm a huge fan of Jaws. So I 100% count that as a horror movie. And I 100% agree that it's one of the best horror movies of all time. I don't think anybody makes creature features like Steven Spielberg. You had Jaws, and something I'll fight to the death on. People that watch this podcast know this, and they're probably sick of hearing it. Jurassic Park is another one that I consider a horror film. I mean, you look at that Velociraptor scene in the kitchen, like it's a total slasher scene. Like, his claws around, like it's a total slasher scene. And the T-Rex, biting through the car and getting the guy when he's on the toilet, like that movie's fucking terrifying. Like that movie legit scared me when I was a kid.
And both movies you mentioned have accomplished the same thing in that they affected you in more than just, it was a movie, I saw a movie today. It was something that continued, whether it was being franchised, whether it was T-shirts, whether it was something you decided to research, decided I'm afraid of. It affected so many layers of real life outside of watching a movie and then walking out and forgetting about it. Like the Beatles, they affected our culture, our politics, our fashion, so many things other than just the music. Much like that, Jaws and that in Jurassic Park, those types of movies stuck with you long after you watched them. So did Earthquake for me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the surround sound they had. I kept thinking, wait a minute, is there like a real earthquake happening? Because you were downtown, and we're talking the mid 70s here. And I'm like, I kept thinking it was going too loud and it was going to cause an earthquake. That's how good it was.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So if you can imagine,
they're doing their job right.
They were. And it's the kind of movie that for 3 days that stuck with me. I was just like, kind of like what's that other one movie, the death ones, where there's 5 or 6 of them, and remember the log comes off the truck and slices the people, and
Final Destination.
My word, do those movies stick with me? I keep watching my step and looking so I love movies that stick with you.
And it's funny because I've always said, another thing that I've had arguments about, the Final Destination franchise to me is a total slasher without the slasher. Like, it's death. Death is your slasher. You just never see him. But the way he's taking people out, you have to use your imagination. Thank you. Like, it's a total slasher. Like in part 1, when the water comes out of the toilet and the kid trips on it and gets hanged in the bathtub, the water sucks back into the toilet. It's a total slasher, man. And I'll argue that to the death. Final Destination is a total slasher franchise, and I fucking love it to death, man.
Yeah, it's those types of movies, like I said, Jurassic Park, Jaws, the Incredible Shrinking Man, that just made you think for a few more days. And that's a great movie, man, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I want. They're like, don't get me wrong. I love a mindless slasher like Friday the 13th, Halloween. I love to just go into a movie, watching people get cut up, watch the good guys win in the end. I love that. But I also do love movies, like you said, they're going to stick with you. Nobody that has watched Final Destination 2 is comfortable driving behind a log truck. That will never happen. Anytime you see a log truck, you're like, fuck this. I'll go in the slow lane if I got to. That's just how it is with us, man. And that's how much horror affects us. And that's why it's so special to me.
To the point that I don't want to stand on a country road next to a wire fence just in case
that explosion happens.
Well, that's back in the. What was another movie? The ghost movie on the ship. I think the
ghost ship.
Yeah, where the wire, the cable snaps and slices them all in half. That reminds me of and they had that kind of same thing.
Shit.
Yeah. I love that.
Tevis, this has been so much fun, man. But we always end this with the same question. I got to go back to The Incredible Shrinking Man. And what we're going to do is we're going to rank this on a skull count. Now, we're not being critics. We're not ranking it on production or quality, acting, score, nothing like that. What we're doing, my friend, is we are ranking this strictly on what this movie means to you and how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being the worst and 5 being the best. You can use half and quarter skulls. What would your ranking of The Incredible Shrinking Man be?
Oh, well, I mean, the fact that I still remember it after all these years, and I saw it probably 4 or 5 times in my whole life, but not in years. I'd have to give it a solid 4.5 skulls.
Yeah. And it's funny because we always talk about our first horror movie, and our first horror movie isn't always something that we enjoy. I have a buddy of mine, and his first horror movie was A Nightmare on Elm Street. And after he
Yeah.
watched that movie, I shit you not, he would not sleep for probably a good 7 years with sheets on his bed. He would not have, because of the scene with Rod in the jail cell with the sheet hanging him. Because of that, he absolutely refused to have sheets on his bed. And that's how badly that movie affected him. So our first horror movie isn't always, wow, that was super cool, I want to get into this now. Sometimes it's, fuck this, I don't ever want to do this again, I can't have sheets on my bed. So it's all about, to me, it's like, and again, guys, I don't condone drug use, but it's like doing drugs. You get that high for the first time, and then you're always chasing that dragon again, wanting to watch that next horror movie, get that next adrenaline rush. And if you're going to choose between doing drugs and watching horror movies, we'll have a marathon, guys. We'll watch all the horror movies that you want. So, man, I want to remind you guys again, Tevis, I have all of his links down here in the description for social media, as well as the Tubi link for Tale of Tales. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Make sure you're giving my man here a follow on social media. Great guy, Michigan guy. Gotta love the gloves. So, man, thank you so much for coming on. Don't go anywhere, my friend. I have a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, keep talking horror. Stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.